day. I'm Marjorie Suseda, and my group was assigned to discuss laws that are related to blow laws. So when we say blow laws, these are the laws that governs our Philippine water or fluvial. So when we say Philippine water, this includes all water resources in the Philippines, including fresh water. So we have the rivers, lakes, groundwaters, and marine. We have the bay, coastal, and oceanic waters. Now, the first law that I will discuss is the Presidential Decree number 1067. So it is a decree instituting a water code, thereby revising and consolidating the laws governing the ownership, appropriation, utilization, exploitation, development, conservation, and protection of water resources. So this law has 9 chapters. So the chapter 1 is the declaration of objectives and principles. Chapter 2, ownership of waters. Chapter 3 is the appropriation of waters. Chapter 4, the utilization of waters. Chapter 5 is the control of waters. Chapter 6 is the conservation and protection of waters and watersheds and related land resources. Chapter 7 is the administration of waters and enforcement of the provisions of this code. Chapter 8 is the penal provisions, and in the Chapter 9 is the transitory and final provisions. So, Presidential Decree 1067, otherwise known as the Water Code of the Philippines, covers underground water, water above the ground, water in the atmosphere, and the waters of the sea within the territorial jurisdiction of the Philippines. The Council shall have original jurisdiction over all disputes relating to appropriation, utilization, exploitation, development, control, conservation, and protection of waters within the meaning and the context of the provisions of this code. So, the utilization, the exploitation, development, conservation, and protection of water resources shall be subject to the control and regulation of the government. Okay, so the next law that I will discuss is the Republic Act number 9275. So, it is an act providing for a comprehensive water quality management and for other purposes. Now, this law consists of 7 chapters. So the first chapter is the general provisions. The second one is the water quality management system. Chapter 3 is the institutional mechanism. Chapter 4, we have the incentives and rewards. Then chapter 5 is the civil liability or the penal provisions. The chapter 6 is the actions, and in the chapter 7 is the final provisions. So, this act provides for the abatement and control of pollution from land-based sources and lays down water quality standards and regulations. So, the act shall apply to water quality management in all water bodies, fresh, brackish, and marine waters. It shall be the policy of the state to prevent, control, and abate pollution of the country's water resources, promote environmental strategies for the protection of water resources, formulate a national program of water quality management, promote commercial and industrial processes and products that are environment friendly and energy efficient, and etc. So the Act, among other things, shall provide for the designation of water quality management areas by the department, in coordination with the National Water Resources Board, the designation of water bodies where specific pollutants from either natural or man-made sources have already exceeded water quality guidelines as non-attainment areas for the exceeded pollutants, a national program on sewerage and septic management, domestic sewage collection, treatment and disposal, water pollution permits and charges, and offenses and penalties. So the next law that I will discuss is the Republic Act number 8550. So it is an act providing for the development, management, and conservation of fisheries and aquatic resources, integrating all laws pertinent thereto, and for other purposes. Now, this law is consists of 9 chapters. So the first chapter 1 talks about the declaration of policy and definitions. Chapter 2 is the utilization, management, development, conservation, and allocation system of fisheries and aquatic resources. Chapter 3 is the reconstitution of the Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources and creation of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources Management Councils. Chapter 4 is the fishery reserves, refuge, and sanctuaries. Chapter 5 is the fisheries research and development. Chapter 6 is the prohibitions and penalties. Chapter 7 is the general provisions. Chapter 8 is the transitory provisions, and then Chapter 9 is the final provisions. So, Republic Act Number 8550, the Philippine Fisheries Code of 1998, the code makes provision for the management and conservation of fisheries and aquaculture in the Philippines and the reconstitution or establishment of fisheries institutions both at national and local level. So, in Chapter 1, it declares the policy of the state with respect to fisheries and contains a large definition section. It is a declared policy to limit access to the fishery and aquatic resources of the Philippines for the exclusive use and enjoyment of all citizens, including women and youth sectors. So, another principle of policy is the protection of municipal fishermen. So in chapter 2, it contains the main body of rules relative to the management and conservation of fisheries and to aquaculture. So fisheries are classified in the municipal fisheries, the fishing in municipal waters, and commercial fishing. The next law that governs our Philippine water is the Republic Act Number 10654, an act to prevent, deter, and eliminate illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing, amending Republic Act Number 8550, otherwise known as the Philippine Fisheries Code of 1998, and for other purposes. So, this Republic Act amends the Philippine Fisheries Code of 1998 and aims to deter and eliminate illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing. Amendments deal with several aspects, specifying new management and conservation measures to conserve and manage living marine resources, fisheries, and aquaculture in the Philippines, and the reconstitution or establishment of fisheries institutions both at the national and local level. One of the amended chapter is the access to fishery resources. The Fisheries Department shall issue such number of licenses and permits for the conduct of fishery activities subject to harvest control rules and reference points as determined by scientific studies or best available evidence. A monitoring, control, and surveillance system shall be established by the department in coordination with LGUs, the private sector, and other agencies concerned to ensure that the fisheries and aquatic resources in the Philippine waters are judiciously and wisely utilized and managed in a sustainable basis and conserved for the benefit and enjoyment exclusively of Filipino citizens. So the MCS system shall encompass all Philippine flag fishing vessels regardless of fishing area and final destination of catch. Also, another section establishes that the department is authorized to adopt port state measures that must be complied with by foreign fishing vessels. These measures shall include prior notification of port entry, use of designated ports, restrictions on port entry and landing or transshipment of fish, restrictions on supplies and services, catch and other documentation requirements, ports inspections, and other related measures. So, transshipment by Philippine flag fishing vessels shall be regulated by the department in a manner consistent with the Philippines' commitment to conventions and international agreements. The next law is the Presidential Decree Number 534 on August 8, 1974, defining illegal fishing and prescribing stiffer penalties therefor. So, fisheries-specific policies in the Philippines were not apparent until 1932 when the first Fisheries Act was introduced, placing fisheries management under the jurisdiction of the Secretary of Agriculture and Natural Resources. So, notable provision in the act is on trade, which limits the importation and exportation of any fish, mollusk, crustaceans, or amphibian or other aquatic animal, adult, young, or fry, or fish eggs. It linked the economic relationship with the United States, allowing its citizens and corporations to access fishing grounds through a permit issued by the national government. So under so the unregulated method of fishing of commercial operators and small fisher folk through the years led to the depletion of stock and degradation of the environment, prompting the promulgation of the Presidential Decree number 534 instituting high penalties ranging up to 12 years or life imprisonment in extreme cases for illegal fishing, fishing with obnoxious or poisonous substances, explosives, and electrofishing. So the next law is the Republic Act number 3931, an act creating the National Water and Air Pollution Control Commission. So, this act declares as national policy to maintain reasonable standards of purity for the waters and of this country with their utilization for domestic, agricultural, industrial, and other legitimate purposes. So, there is created in the office of the President of the Philippines the National Water and Air Pollution Control Commission, consisting of government officials and representatives of the private sector who shall be appointed by the President of the Philippines. So, the Commission shall have the task to encourage voluntary cooperation in the field of water pollution abatement. It shall serve as arbitrator for the determination of reparations involved in the damages and losses resulting from the pollution. So it shall devise, consult, participate, cooperate, and enter into agreements, particularly with various provincial and municipal governments, for the furtherance of the purpose of this act. So it shall also prepare and develop a comprehensive plan for the abatement of existing pollution and issue standards, rules, and regulations to govern city and district engineers in the approval of plans and specifications for sewage works and industrial waste. Next law is the Presidential Decree number 979. It is providing for the revision of Presidential Decree number 600 governing marine pollution. So, this is hereby declared a national policy to prevent and control the pollution of seas by the dumping of waste, and other matter which create hazards to human health, harm living resources and marine life, damage amenities, or interfere with the legitimate uses of the sea within the territorial jurisdiction of the Philippines. So, those are the only laws that we included in this discussion, and thank